win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? And there has been rioting in Louisville. There's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
Mr. President, the second question is, will you...
Please, go ahead.
Why won't you...
It's here. We are here. It's happening. We don't have to wonder anymore as individuals, right? We don't have to wonder. Well, as citizens, we don't have to wonder what it would be like to live through a time like this. As individual citizens, we don't have to wonder anymore how we would react, how we would act, what we would do for our country if our country was ever in this kind of peril. You now know what you would do for your country if your country was ever in this much danger. It's whatever it is you're doing right now. What you're doing now, what you're planning to do for the next 6 weeks, that's what you're made of. That's what you'll be able to say you did when your country needed you.
Those were two very important clips, one by Donald Trump and one by Rachel Maddow. The first one by Trump is basically him saying he's going to rig the election. He's going to steal it, or at least he's going to try, because he's going to try to basically invalidate every single mail-in vote, and that he won't concede, he won't agree to a peaceful transition of power if the mail-in votes are counted. And he says, get rid of those ballots, and you'll have your transition, but there won't need to be one because there will be a continuation because I'll win. And then Rachel Maddow is right in noting that we are here. We're at one of those moments, guys, at least potentially, where democracy could fall. Where this could be a fundamental change in the history of the United States of America, and therefore really the history of the world, because it is still the world superpower, that this could be the end of American democracy, or at least the end of democracy as we know it. It really could be. This could be one of those moments. And what happens in the next few weeks and what happens for the first few days and weeks after the election will determine so many things. We really are there. What Donald Trump is doing is extremely clear. He knows that Biden voters are voting more by mail than in person, and his voters are voting more in person than by mail. And so he knows that on election night, he wants to see all those in-person votes get counted, build up a lead, and then basically try to stop any of those mail-in votes from getting counted, especially the ones that arrive as the election is happening, as the votes are happening, ballots that were mailed by the deadline but are coming a little bit late. He wants those to basically be ignored, and he wants to use that to claim victory. And then he wants to use his new Supreme Court justice, which he might get, he's likely to get, to agree with other conservative justices on the court to allow this, and then remain as president regardless of the fact that he got more votes or he got more votes in the key states or not. He's basically planning a coup against the American people. Not against Joe Biden, really. It's against the people, against the voters, against the ballots of the people. That's what he's doing. Or at the very least, he's setting up to do that if he feels he needs to. That's what's happening. This is the biggest threat to American democracy in 50 years at least. And we're here in this moment. And so I do want people to think about that. I do want people to think about what you're willing to do in voting and protesting to make sure that Donald Trump does not steal your vote and does not steal the election. He does not have such absolute power that he can just take it outright. There are limits to that. So the biggest fear are razor-thin margins in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, Michigan. In those states, it's imperative to get everyone young people, racialized people, the sorts of people that tend to vote Democrat and get them to the polls. This is one of those moments. Bernie is right. People on the left, often were assumed to not want Trump out of power as much because we're critical of Biden and Trump. But the fact of the matter is we do that because we're honest, but we recognize, as Bernie did all the way back in 2015 when people were laughing about Trump, that he poses a very unique danger to American democracy among other senior leaders in recent American history. And Bernie has always warned about Trump's danger. He was an early bird to that worm. And he's right. We need to heed this moment. There is a chance Donald Trump will reject the results and try to steal the election. People need to be ready to protest that. People need to be ready to fight that. People need to be ready to do whatever it takes to stop that. And one of the things people can do, just one of them, is to ensure their vote gets counted. Vote by mail. If you do, vote early. If you feel safe to do so, go vote in person because Trump thinks those votes are his. Consider doing that if you feel physically safe. Look, I don't share a lot of MSNBC clips on this channel and do so in praising them. But Rachel Maddow is 100% right. This is one of those moments that you thought might be a hypothetical. What would you do if your country was on the edge of dictatorship? And we're there now. So the question is, what are you going to do?